Hey class, so we're back. Before we talk about keyframes, there's one more thing I want to talk about, which is masks. So I want to, when we start keyframing, to have each word, so let's talk about, come up individually. Now one of the, I would say the more efficient way of doing this is actually to use the same let's talk about layer with a different mask on it each time. So let me show you what I mean. So when you're creating a shape, if you have a layer already selected, so let's select let's talk about, and then grab our shape tool. And I'm just going to draw a little mask over the word let's. There we go. And you can see if I have a layer selected and I use a shape, it becomes a mask. If, for example, I don't have a layer selected because I clicked into empty space and I draw, then I'm drawing a shape, which I don't want. So just created one layer or one version of this line, let's talk about, with a mask. So I'm going to rename this. So I'm going to click on this layer, hit return, and let's just change this so it's just let's. I'm going to duplicate this layer. So go to edit and duplicate or Command D. And this one, I'm going to click on the layer, hit return, and this one will be talk. And let's move this mask. So let me try and zoom in a little bit. So moving the mask is a little tricky. Generally what I try and do is grab this yellow line here, hold down Shift and drag. So grab that yellow line, hold down Shift and drag. And because I have the previous layer selected or showing, visible, you can see the let's and you can see talk. All right, so now I'm just going to do the same thing. So this time I'm going to press Command and D. And now this will be about. So press Enter to rename. And then this time I'm going to turn off the visibility of these other layers. Grab my arrow here and grab the line and click and drag, and press Shift. There we go. So now we have three separate layers for let's talk about. So let's talk about setting keyframes. So for this, what I want to happen is let's talk about, they come on in succession, and then keyframes comes on later. And we'll have each of these fade up. And then I think probably I'll animate having keyframes fly up from the bottom. And when it flies up from the bottom, it will move the entire block of text up a little bit. So we can do that in a bit. So first of all, let's start with, let's talk about. So we know our keyframes is not going to start just yet. So I'm just going to move this layer with my arrow to about 3 seconds, just so that gets it out of the way. Also for let's, I'm going to move this one over a little tiny bit. Talk, move this a little bit more and move the next one. So I'm just going to hit spacebar to play and see how this feels. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to move this keyframes over, so about maybe 1.5 seconds, so there's not quite so much of a delay. But basically, this is a really easy start to bringing up our layers, because you know they just appear, and then we've got our keyframes. Perfect. So now we've got a little bit of an animation going on, but I want to add more. So there's a few options, but the biggest one is let's add a keyframe for transparency. So I'm going to grab my let's layer, And I'm going to set my opacity to 100%, and kind of position my time navigator a little inwards here. And I'm going to press T on my keyboard, and that will bring up my transparency or opacity menu. You can also see that my properties also has opacity here, so I could set my keyframes for anchor position, scale, rotation, or transparency up here, or I can do it at this layer. So if I press T again, that'll hide that, but let's press T one more time. And I'm going to click on the little opacity stopwatch. So this little stopwatch sets a keyframe. You can see the keyframe on the left-hand side here. And there's a keyframe that's created in my timeline. And this just sets this property for opacity at 100% right where I'm at. Now if I want to go back to the beginning, I can set my opacity down to 0. And then we can watch this. And it automatically sets a keyframe when you change your values. So now if I press spacebar again, there we go. And it's just fading up really nicely. So let's do that same thing for each layer. Now, one magic shortcut that you need to learn is U. U shows and hides values with keyframes. And so if you press U once, it either if you have your properties showing, it will hide it, or if you don't have any properties showing, it will expand that. So just remember U. So I'm going to press U to hide that. Let's go to talk. I'm going to do the same thing. I know I want to be at 100% somewhere mid-range here. So I can press T to turn on my opacity. Click on the little stopwatch. Make sure I got a keyframe here. I'm going to drag back in time, change my opacity by clicking and dragging in that field. And now I have 2 keyframes. If you ever want to set an additional keyframe, say another 100, you can also click this keyframe value over on the left here. So just know that that is an option. All right, so press U to hide this value, go to About, press T for opacity, or actually in this case, I'm just going to grab the stopwatch over on the right here in the Properties menu. And actually, I can move this keyframe because I don't want it to happen just yet. I'm going to move it over here. And then I'm going to move my time slider and change this opacity value. So click it and drag it to 0. And now I have 2 keyframes here. So press U to hide that value. I'm going to press spacebar to play. There we go. Let's talk about keyframes. Perfect. All right. So now, right now, we're just fading up. We've got a couple basic keyframes. And for the actual word keyframes, what I want this to do is to start off screen and then move to this position. So I know this is a good position, so I'm going to press P to show my positions value. And let's move a little bit into the timeline. And I'm going to click on this stopwatch, because this is where I want keyframes to end. Now I can go back further, and I'm going to use my arrows, and I'm just going to drag this and hold down Shift until it's out of frame. I guess I should probably fit this. Here we go. So basically it's starting off frame and it's moving up by here. Perfect. So that's position. I could also add transparency, I could also add scale, rotation, etc. if I wanted to, but right now I just want this animation. All right, so let's play this. All right, now I wouldn't mind if this had, and all of my keyframes had, a little something extra which is an ease to them. So that eases are just the changes of timing. So it's the acceleration ease in or ease out. And After Effects has that built into the system. So I'm going to select both of these keyframes. I'm going to right click on them, go to Keyframe Assistant and Easy Ease. So that's just going to apply an ease in and an ease out to all of these, to these two keyframes. So let's press play so you can see that. So it just has a little bit of acceleration and then it decelerates as it gets close. So I'm going to do this to all of these properties. So remember, we're going to select a layer, press U to reveal the keyframes, click and drag over my keyframes to grab them, right click, Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease. Go to Talk, press U, click and drag to grab those keyframes, right click, Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease, or you could press F9. All right, and last one is Lit, so I'm going to press U to see my keyframes, click and drag over them, right click, Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease. Perfect. So now let's take a look at what this looks like. Okay, so let's move on to the next video where I'm going to show you the last piece, which is nulls, and then we'll look at eases a little bit more. Thanks, class.